Welcome to another deep dive. This time, it's into the world of mermaid encounters.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we're going way beyond those fairy tales and
Yeah.
diving headfirst, into real life accounts.
Awesome.
Mostly from a Reddit thread where people share their own personal mermaid encounters.
Interesting.
We also pulled some background from Wikipedia on mermaid mythology to give us some more context.
I see. Yeah.
You mentioned your family had some stories about mermaids in the Caribbean, so we'll definitely explore those connections.
It's amazing how these stories stick around,
Yeah.
across different cultures and generations. But what's really interesting about this deep dive is we've got a chance to compare those firsthand accounts with all the, established folklore.
Right.
It's kind of like holding up a mirror to our imaginations and asking, is there more to these myths than we think?
Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah.
So, starting with that Caribbean connection,
Yep.
we found several Reddit users who said they had encounters in that region. Like one user, Cornholio69666,
What a name.
described being pulled underwater in Utila, Honduras.
Wow.
They felt a hand tugging at their hair, and get this, a remora was swimming nearby.
Okay, now remoras, they're usually attached to sharks and whales.
Right.
Not people.
Not people.
And what makes this even more interesting is that Cornholio 69666's friend,
Yeah.
who's a diving instructor,
Right.
also felt threatened by something in the water, but they couldn't see it.
Oh, wow.
These details, they make it seem more believable,
Right.
than you usually find with supernatural stories.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder if maybe there is something more to these stories
Yeah.
than just people misidentifying stuff or getting carried away with their imaginations.
Yeah, and it's not just one isolated thing either.
Yeah.
Another user, Old Supermarket 5657, had a pretty chilling encounter in Montego Bay, Jamaica. They were just sitting on the beach, during a lightning storm,
Oh, wow.
when they felt this super intense urge to go into the water,
Really?
but they can't even swim.
Oh, geez.
They were describing feeling a sense of dread, and then during a lightning flash, they saw this large figure staring at them from the water.
Oh, that's scary. That overwhelming urge to get in the water. That's something that comes up a lot in these mermaid stories, Makes you think, could it be some kind of hypnotic suggestion?
Oh, interesting.
We know that some animals, like anglerfish, they use that bioluminescence to lure prey.
Right.
So maybe mermaids have evolved something similar.
Right.
Maybe they use, visual cues, maybe even some kind of sonic or psychic thing to draw people towards them.
That's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
And it's not just the typical beautiful mermaid either. It makes them seem more complex and possibly dangerous.
Right, exactly.
And speaking of dangerous, another user, LadderTal9403, described this terrifying encounter while fishing in a river. And they said they felt hypnotized by their fishing line and couldn't resist following it, even though their dog was trying to pull them back.
Wow.
They described a greenish-brown torso and head with a hand pulling on the line.
A hand, not a fin.
Yeah.
That's really different from how we usually picture mermaids.
Yeah.
And to make things even creepier, LadderTal9403's dog, it lost an ear in the struggle.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and the vet found a tooth lodged in the dog's skull that kind of looked like an alligator's tooth,
Uh-huh.
but it wasn't.
That's creepy. What could it have been?
Exactly. It makes you wonder if we're dealing with something a lot more predatory and powerful than we thought.
So we've got these eerie encounters, often with people feeling like they're being drawn in or controlled, and it's not just in the ocean either. Another user, Cordy1511, developed a fear of open water after reading all these stories, even small rivers and lakes. And they noticed a pattern of this, hypnotic influence, and wondered how mermaids could be putting people in a trance.
That's a question that's puzzled people for forever.
Right.
Some theories say mermaids might use infrasound.
Okay.
Those are low-frequency sound waves that can make you feel uneasy and disoriented and even cause hallucinations.
Wow.
Others think it might be telepathy or psychic suggestion.
Oh, wow.
Like how dolphins use echolocation to navigate and talk to each other.
Right.
So maybe mermaids have evolved a more advanced way of doing that where they can actually influence the minds of other creatures.
Wow, that's amazing. So we're not just talking about mythical creatures. Maybe we're talking about beings with really advanced brains and possibly dangerous powers.
Which brings us to another user, Tall Scholar 870. They also felt that sense of being controlled during an encounter in Jamaica. They said they felt like they had to look at the mermaid but couldn't make themselves get any closer.
That's that classic feeling of being drawn to something and scared of it at the same time.
Right.
It's like a primal fear of the unknown, the things that are just beyond our understanding. And this unease is made even stronger by the fact that many of these encounters aren't, friendly or playful, like in the movies.
Yeah, it seems like there's a darker, more predatory side to these creatures that we need to, think about.
Right.
Like user Zabudaya was actually hospitalized after an encounter with 3 mermaids.
Hospitalized. That definitely sounds like a level of aggression we don't normally think about with mermaids.
No, not at all. And then there's this anonymous woman from Thailand. She was snorkeling and suddenly made eye contact with a mermaid.
Oh, geez. She said she was absolutely terrified by the mermaid's gaze and just had this overwhelming urge to get out of the water.
Another example of that powerful, maybe hypnotic influence, right?
Yeah.
It's like they can control our minds and bodies, make us see and do things we wouldn't normally.
And this theme of manipulation and control gets really dark in a story shared by Lala Kakez, who had a horrifying childhood experience in Jamaica. They said they were lured in by this beautiful woman who offered to teach them to swim. But then things turned into a nightmare of manipulation, abuse, and these scary pacts.
This story is really scary because it shows how mermaids might take advantage of people, especially kids.
Yeah.
Lala Kaka said they felt like a pet or an experiment being abused physically and mentally.
It's definitely not the innocent, playful mermaids from those fairy tales.
No, not at all.
It definitely makes you rethink things. It raises some big questions about how they interact with humans. Are they just predators or is there more to it? Can they feel empathy? Can they form bonds with humans? Or are we just pawns in their weird games?
These are questions that have fascinated people for centuries.
Yeah.
And as we dig deeper into these accounts, I think we'll find that the answers aren't always simple. The world of mermaids, if it's real, is probably just as complicated and full of variety as our own. It's kind of wild how many of these stories mention feeling uneasy around certain bodies of water, even like normal ones,
Right.
Take Peaceman 876, for example. They said they feel weird around ponds and lakes, even the ones people made.
Right. And Nice in 1989 added to that, saying that based on their research, mermaids aren't only in the ocean.
Oh, really?
They can be in any kind of water.
Huh. That's interesting. So it's not just the ocean we gotta watch out for.
Right. Makes you think twice about going for a swim anywhere, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. It kind of reminds me of user from the Philippines, being at Business Slip 1.
Okay.
They talked about stories their mom told them about their grandfather, who was a fisherman. Okay. He always warned everyone about the still, deep parts of a local river. Said he'd seen mermaids there.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that interesting, like how these stories become part of family history, passed down through generations?
Yeah, especially for people who live and work around water. It adds like a cultural weight to the stories,
Totally. And the way they describe these river mermaids is pretty interesting, too.
Oh, yeah. What did they say?
Well, they were described as both, scary and playful, even trying to lure people and boats into the water. It's like that double nature that mermaids often have in stories.
Right.
Alluring, but also dangerous, capable of both good and bad. I think it reflects our complicated relationship with nature, The draw of beauty and the fear of the unknown all mixed together.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So not just beautiful sirens then, but maybe tricksters, even predators.
Exactly. Another user, Soggy Programmer 24, picked up on that idea too.
Yeah.
They were talking about how mermaids could actually influence the physical world, even like a person's willpower.
It's a chilling thought. What if they really are real and have that kind of power?
It definitely makes you question what we know about nature and our place in it.
It does. It makes you think twice about those casual swims in the lake, that's for sure.
I know, right? But before we get too lost in the what-ifs, let's get back to some specific accounts.
Okay, sounds good.
Remember that anonymous woman from Thailand who was snorkeling when she saw the mermaid?
Oh, yeah, the one who felt like she was in a trance.
Yeah, terrifying, right? She was looking at this fish, and then all of a sudden, she felt compelled to focus on something further down.
Oh, geez.
And what she saw was not your typical beautiful mermaid.
Oh, no.
It looked like a rotting human corpse from the waist up, with this scary, almost demonic face. And the bottom half was this skeletal, fish-like tail, all covered in decaying flesh.
That sounds horrifying.
Yeah, not exactly the romanticized image we're used to.
Definitely not. More like something out of a nightmare.
Exactly, like a monster from the deep.
So did she, describe the mermaid in more detail?
Oh yeah, she specifically mentioned the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Large, black, and totally soulless. Just staring at her, not moving at all. It sent shivers down her spine.
I bet. The eyes seem to be a big thing in a lot of these stories. Like, they have some kind of power.
Yeah, like a window into something ancient and mysterious. We can't really grasp it.
So what happened next? Did she, escape?
Thankfully, yeah, she managed to snap out of the trance and swim back to her dad and brother. But they didn't believe her, of course.
Oh, that's awful. It seems like people who share these experiences often get laughed at or dismissed.
It's true, and that can make it even harder to process what they went through.
Absolutely. But at least on Reddit, she found some support from other users.
Yeah, like Ruma said, who pointed out how her experience was similar to stories from places like Zimbabwe and Scotland.
Right. It just shows you that there are these common threads in these stories, even though they come from different parts of the world. And it's not just about the descriptions, it's about the way these encounters make people feel, the emotional and psychological impact,
Absolutely. Speaking of impact, remember Tall Scholar 8570's encounter in Jamaica?
Yeah, the one where they felt completely controlled by the mermaid.
Right, they even asked locals about it, and their friend warned them to stay away or they'd be taken. There's a definite sense of danger there.
Yeah, definitely. And the way they describe the mermaid is interesting too.
Oh, how so?
Well, it wasn't the typical mermaid with flowing hair and a sparkly tail. They said it had a brown, manatee-like tail, dark red, straight hair, and these piercing black eyes.
A manatee-like tail? That's unique. It's like people are trying to piece together a clearer picture of what these creatures actually look like.
Yeah, exactly. And what's fascinating is how different some of these descriptions are. Makes you wonder if there are different types of mermaids out there, or if maybe people are misidentifying other sea creatures.
I know, right? It's like a puzzle with so many missing pieces.
Okay, so speaking of different interpretations, let's go back to Lala Kessa's story for a minute. Remember, they said they were captured by a mermaid as a child in Jamaica.
Oh yeah, that one was really disturbing. It reminds us that these encounters aren't always just quick glimpses or curious sightings. They can have some really serious consequences.
Totally. And their story really highlights how there can be trauma, manipulation, and exploitation in these encounters. It's something we don't often hear about when it comes to mermaid stories.
No, not at all. It's like there's a whole other side to the myth that we often ignore.
It's a pretty heavy story. And it really reminds us that these encounters aren't just like quick glimpses or just, curious sightings. They can really affect people's lives in a big way.
Absolutely. Lala Kessa's story really shows how much trauma, manipulation, and even exploitation can be a part of these encounters. It's a side of the mermaid myth that we don't talk about much.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe we should move on to something a bit lighter.
Sounds good to me.
There's this user, Adventurous Coffee, who shared a story about their grand aunt, who, as a young girl, saw this figure with long hair and a fishtail. It was sitting on a rock near these caverns in the Bahamas.
It's funny how caves and caverns are always connected to mermaids in stories and myths.
Yeah.
Like, they might have these secret underwater homes, hidden places where humans can't reach.
Right, like an underwater city or something. Anyway, Adventurous Coffee's grand aunt couldn't really see the creature's face clearly, but they remember the hair, the tail, and how it just flopped back into the water. And to this day, she's convinced it was a mermaid. The whole experience left her feeling both kind of amazed and scared.
Even those quick glimpses can stick with you, especially when it's something so unexpected and strange. It's like the unknown has this power to grab our attention and make us question what we think is real.
It's true. And sometimes these things happen when we're kids, like in the story Abby and Love Highways share.
Oh yeah. What was theirs?
They said they saw a mermaid with long purple hair playing with a dolphin.
Wow.
They were about 4 years old at the time, on a ship with their dad. But their dad and his friend didn't believe them.
Kids often see things differently than adults, They're more open to magic and wonder, not as limited by logic and reason.
Right.
Maybe they're more sensitive to these subtle energies, these glimpses into other worlds.
Makes you wonder if we lose some of that openness as we grow up. We get more skeptical and less willing to believe in the extraordinary.
Maybe so. But it's also important to think critically about these stories.
Right.
Not every weird experience means it's supernatural, right? Sometimes there are simpler explanations like misidentifications or tricks of the light or even hoaxes.
Of course. We need to balance that sense of wonder with a critical mind. Which brings us to, the big question, skepticism. Several Reddit users, like Halseygill7422,
Yeah.
were wondering why there's no physical proof of mermaids. If they're real, where are the bodies?
That's a valid point, and it's something people argue about a lot. Some people say mermaid bodies might decompose really fast or get eaten by other sea creatures, so there's nothing left to find. Others think mermaids might have a unique biology that helps them avoid detection, or even control whether we can see them or not.
And then there are those conspiracy theories,
Oh, right.
like the one Opinion No 577 suggested. The government's hiding evidence of mermaids to prevent widespread panic.
It's interesting how conspiracy theories pop up when people try to make sense of things they don't understand, or when they feel like someone's keeping secrets from them. It's a way to fill in the blanks with stories that make the world feel more ordered and controlled, even if it's not true.
But even without any solid proof, there's something about the number of these stories and how similar they are that's hard to ignore. Like FatCat3012 said, it doesn't make sense that so many people would make up the same stories.
Yeah, I agree. There's a whole collection of folklore and personal accounts that are worth looking into, even if we stay a bit skeptical. And it's good to remember we've only explored a tiny bit of the ocean. There could be all sorts of amazing and mysterious things down there that we haven't found yet.
That's a good point. We tend to think we know everything about the world, but there's still so much we don't know. Speaking of unexplored territory, let's talk about this really interesting story Own Performance 4440 shared.
Okay.
It involves a young girl, a mermaid, and a magical gift.
Oh, I like those kinds of stories. The ones that mix folklore with personal experiences. It's like a glimpse into how cultures imagine things.
Right. So, Own Performance 4440's mom told them this story that happened on a beach in the Caribbean, known for its dangerous riptides and strong currents. A young girl wandered off from her family and was walking along the river when she met this woman sitting on a rock. The girl described her as being half naked with long hair and a tail instead of legs.
That classic mermaid look. It's amazing how often that description comes up in different cultures and through history.
Exactly. So anyway, the woman, the mermaid, dives into the water and then pops back up a little later, but only her upper body's visible.
Yeah.
She says hi to the girl and asks her to come closer.
The mermaid's allure, it's like a common theme in these stories, how they pull unsuspecting people into their world.
The girl was scared at first, but the mermaid offered her this beautiful gold comb as a gift. She made the girl promise to never give it away.
A promise made to a supernatural being, those are serious business. There are often consequences for breaking those promises.
And unfortunately, that seems to be what happened in this story. The girl eventually lost the comb, and soon after, she lost her ability to speak and became mentally disabled. She lived a long life, but she never recovered.
That's really sad. It makes you think that comb had some kind of magic power, a connection to the mermaid world. And breaking the promise had a terrible effect.
It shows that even those encounters that seem good at first can have unexpected and maybe even really bad consequences. The mermaid world isn't something to mess with.
It's a place of mystery, power, and danger, for sure. And it still fascinates and intrigues us, even in our modern world with all its science and technology.
It's true. There's something about these stories that speaks to us on a deep level, connecting with our deepest fears and desires, our longing for the unknown and the extraordinary.
And maybe that's why these stories keep being told, even without any solid evidence. They speak to a part of us that wants to believe in magic and mystery, and something beyond ourselves.
So as we come to the end of our deep dive into mermaid encounters, I'm left feeling, a sense of wonder, a little bit of fear, and a lot of questions.
That's the great thing about exploring the unknown. It opens up new possibilities, makes us question what we think we know, and leaves us with more questions than answers.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the depths. We hope you enjoyed exploring these captivating and sometimes unsettling stories. And whether you believe in mermaids or not, the ocean is still a vast and mysterious place, full of wonder and secrets just waiting to be discovered.
Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep your mind open to the possibilities.